Cousins back to throw on 4th and 18. He's given time. He wants Jefferson. Climbs the ladder. Oh, my goodness. Justin Jefferson.
First and goal for the 5. Brady. Evans. Did he catch it? Yes. Hill might go. Tyreek Hill was right on the spot, and he's gone for a touchdown. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Tyreek. The ball finds him. Mac Hollins out on defense. He's all the way back. Stevenson.
Is anyone going to?
That's on the 30. Flips it back. Stanford band nowhere in sight. Uh-oh. It's picked off. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Unbelievable. Oh, wow. Incredible. Chandler Jones takes it in and wins the game for the Raiders. Have you ever seen an ending like that?
I've never seen anything like that. I have no idea why he was doing that. Oh, my goodness.
We are back with another episode of the YAC Boys, presented by DDD. So I'm here with Nick, as always. Nick, how's your Labor Day weekend, man?
Dude, it was fantastic. It was going absolutely swimmingly until a few hours ago when we got that Travis Kelce news. Besides that, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I saw that as well. It stinks to have any, star banged up right before the season like this, but Kelce's a big one. And I know you have the home stack in our league, so that's a brutal blow.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. On top of, obviously, you lose Kelce, who's one of one unicorn tight end. Mahomes probably can't be quite as aggressively predicted to do well for week 1. Maybe they throw a little bit less. Maybe they throw, even if they throw as much, maybe they don't have as much success. So don't love that for me for the first couple weeks. Hopefully it's on his ACL, like Rap Sheet says. We'll see.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We're recording here on Tuesday, so hopefully we'll have this to you guys Wednesday before kickoff this Thursday. So it's coming quick. I'm excited to finally get football back. And we have a great show for you guys today. We will recap the draft, which, wow, that was a big deal. And I don't know about you, Nick, but one takeaway right off the bat, it just seems like I like the $1,000 budget. Maybe we need to talk about that again. Like, it took a long time, and I don't know if that's kind of at fault there, but open to ideas. So we'll recap the draft. We have a pick'em where we'll review each of the matchups in our league. And Nick has said this before, but I'll say it again. This podcast is not really about the NFL. It's just about our league. So, we're just going to do, Brad against Sean and, Nick against Pete. Like that. That's what we want. Finally, we'll hit news. So, we'll talk Kelce, we'll talk JT, Cup,
all the big news.
Yeah. And I don't want to spoil all the news, but I heard another Nick guy, Juju, his knee might fall off apparently at any moment. Did you hear that?
Bomb. One wrong step and he explodes, dude. It's going to happen.
I think that could happen to anyone.
A tight end and Kelce can't play. Juju might be my new flex this week. So,
well, he might explode.
Hopefully he explodes for a touchdown before he explodes into smithereens.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it. I will share my screen here. And we'll kind of go through step by step through each of the teams. It's a little bit different than Fantrax. Nick, I'm still kind of used to baseball. When I log on to ESPN, I don't see quite all of the same detail I'm used to seeing, but within ESPN here for draft recap, you should be able to see the cost of each player. I did hit share. I think it's just pulling up slowly here for me.
I'm seeing it loading now. You're good.
All right. Okay. I think this is it. So we can kind of go through team by team. If you're watching, you should be able to see all of the keepers designated with the K here. So their keeper cost and then their draft cost is noted as well if they don't have that keeper mark. So we can kind of go through. I, off the bat, Nick, have a couple of guys in my back pocket, players that I think were really good deals. But I'd be curious just to go through. We could start at the top, or, you can also call out any specific guys that maybe you're targeting. But we could just talk a little bit about the draft itself. a team that you think you like after the draft? What are your thoughts?
I think maybe we just spend 60 to 90 seconds on each of these teams. We'll start at the top with you and we work our way down. That way
Sure.
everybody can see what they did. We can sort of follow up if we want to maybe touch on some of our comments from before the draft. I remember saying specifically for Pete, buy some of those top dogs. Avoid the club dogs. You have lots of money. You got some good keepers. Let's see if Pete did it. Let's see if the rest of the guys did it. And then obviously if we don't think they did a good job, we'll tell them. If they think they did a good job, we'll tell them. But let's start with you.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, I won't talk too much about my team. Give me the review for team with a lame name.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see, we talked about this last week, guys. Kyle has a million keepers here. He has basically a full lineup already. Not amazing players, all of them, but very useful players, all of the keepers. And he had a lot of money going into it. So I think it makes a lot of sense what you did, Kyle, to go with Lamar and Devontae as two of your biggest guys you paid for. That's almost all the money you spent. And if I were you, I would have done the exact same thing. You've kept a lot of guys like Pacheco, like a Drake London, like Brian Robinson, guys you probably don't think are necessarily top 15 at their position, but guys who have upside, guys who are good, guys who you don't mind having play as your flex or your RB wide receiver 2 most weeks. And if I were you, I would have done the exact same thing. I would have gone all in on at least one quarterback and then one skill position player. So it's not really fun to see us suck each other off. I know that's sort of the feedback we get, but I would have similarly, and I think Lamar and Adams were good buys there. That's mostly my takeaway for you. Kamara is interesting. I guess my quick question for you would be, are you interested in Kamara because he was just a running back you wanted to add, or do you actually think Kamara is going to be awesome this year? Where do you I'm kind of torn on Kamara personally.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Kamara going both ways. I think he was a high risk, high reward player that I wanted to throw into my lineup, Nick, especially because I didn't have a lot of money at that point. I already spent up on kind of two of the targets that I had in mind. From my perspective, I had a full running back lineup, but I'm not thrilled with my running backs. I don't have like a great RB1. I don't think Kamara necessarily will be that RB1, but I think just exposing yourself to that type of upside was, something I wanted to do. So that's the reason. I'm happy with Lamar and Devontae. They were kind of my plan B, actually, but both of them. I wanted to get Josh Allen and Diggs, and I think Mark grabbed Allen, and I think Pete, to your point, spending up, was able to get Diggs, but that was kind of the idea going in.
Good job, Pete. You heard me. And my bad, Kyle. Then I misremembered it. I thought you bought Kamara before the other guy, so I thought you maybe had a thing with him and you liked him a lot. I think either way it makes sense. I think we're at RB1 for you, but I do think Kamara has a chance to be one of your better players. I just don't necessarily believe in a ton myself, but also for whatever you went for, $70, 75 makes sense.
Nick, you're probably right, and I guess that may have happened. I did a few drafts and I actually got Kamara in a couple, so I could be mixing up, but I think it's not even that I really like Kamara that much. I do think I like him a little bit more than consensus, but I think I spoke to Mark about this, but especially in our league, there tends to be a year-over-year trend where early in the draft, guys go kind of cheap. So a guy like Kyler, we were really hot on. A guy like Kamara, some guys that maybe aren't going to play a lot early on and then kind of pick up the second half of the season. I was looking to target a couple of those guys early in the draft, hoping that they would go cheaper than they should. So maybe that's what I did with Kamara in that case.
Yeah, I think you paid a fair price. So I was just curious if you especially were targeting him or just maybe his skill set. It sounds like it's maybe a little bit less about Kamara, although you have landed in some other places too, and more about wanting to get someone out of the way kind of early. Either way, I liked your team coming into it. I like your draft now. I think that's probably all we got to say about you. We don't really have any disagreements there.
Yeah, let's flip over to your team, Nick. I'll get started on your team because it is your team. I think, we did a lot of similar things. You had a pretty full team as well, at least, from a cost perspective. Kelsey, Mahomes, even Chase to a lesser extent. They're somewhat pricey. So I thought it was nice that you're able to still get a top running back in Eckler. Obviously, the news about Kelsey stinks. I hope he's able to come back quickly, but you still managed to get Pitts, and I'm curious to get more of your thoughts there, Nick. Was that just something that kind of happened on the fly, and you liked his value as a keeper, just given that this is a dynasty?
Yeah. So when Pitts came out, I'd already bought Eckler for a lot, probably market cost or even a little bit above it for I think an RB1 should be. Though I was willing to do it, to your point, because with my keepers, I kept a wide receiver 1, a tight end 1, a quarterback 1. I kept Herbert. I don't really think he's a running back one or anything close to it. So I wanted to get a running back. And I was sort of targeting, as long as I didn't feel like I was drastically overpaying, one of the RB1s, which is what I view equity to be. But by that point, I didn't have a ton of money left. And I was looking at filling out flexes mostly. And I had no idea that Kelsey would make me put Pitts in where I'm going to have to play him now in week 1 and maybe for the first couple of weeks. But I do like Pitts this year as a post-hype guy. I think I've talked about this on our baseball pod before, but a lot of these guys are different. So a similar thought process I have in football is I want the guys who are not this shiny new object. I want the guys who have amazing traits, have been in the league for a year or two, kind of post-hypey, maybe let you down once or twice, and Pitts has done that, but who I think still have amazing tools and an opportunity to be successful. And I think basically I just described what Pitts is. And if Pitts comes out this year and posts 1,100 yards and a handful of touchdowns, maybe even more than a handful of touchdowns, I think that can be fluky. New quarterback that he's played with for the first half of his career. He had Ritter a little bit last year, but not for all of it. And I think their offense gets better a little bit this year too. Their line's beefed up a little bit. Obviously, Bijan helps. Drake London will be with them all year, as opposed to just part of it before he got hurt. So Pitts was somebody I already knew I liked more than probably the value. And when he came up here, I thought, too good to take. I would have probably taken him to about 65, 75 bucks is where I had him. I think it's right around 70. So because of the two flexes, Kelsey will have a bye. Kelsey's not hurt anyway. So I'm glad I have Pitts in this case more than, whoever the best tight end on waivers is. I did like him though, to answer your question.
Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I thought another interesting one was Michael Thomas. Similar. I mean, another Saints player who's kind of, at one point in time been one of the top players in the NFL, and there's nothing but question marks now. So, especially with, plugging in some guys in flex that maybe you weren't originally planning to, that's a big one as well. Were you targeting Thomas ahead of the draft?
Thomas, less so himself and more his archetype, kind of like with Pitts. Thomas, if he plays and when he plays, he'll be great and he'll be worth me playing. He'll make it kind of easy on me is what I'm trying to say. When he's hurt, inevitably, because it will happen, I won't have to play him. It'll be an easy decision not to play him. But when he plays, I think he'll be pretty good. And we've seen with Adams last year and previous years, even before Adams last year with Carr can support good receivers. So as long as Thomas isn't just completely destroyed, I think there's plenty of room for Olave and him both to go off. Thomas, obviously, in a less significant way. But I do think until he breaks down, he'll give me some weeks in the flex or even as a receiver too that I want. And that's sort of what I was looking for at this point in the draft.
I like it. Cool. Another one was Tank Bigsby. That's just a silly one, but I was hoping to target him at the end, Nick, and you grabbed him from me. So nice job there.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think you were the one who nominated Tank. I like Tank a lot this year.
I know. Yeah. I did. Cool. Yeah. Any other call outs on your team?
No, this is the drafts I've done, the one that went most closely to what I expected I would do. I knew I was going to get either one of the top 12-ish running backs, and there were only about 4 or 5 of them even available, so I got Eckler. If I didn't get one of them, it was going to be just all in on one of the quarterbacks, like Allen or someone like that. But other than that, I was trying to get a lot of depth pieces like a Juju, like a Thielen, like a Jeff Wilson. Again, not necessarily those guys, but depth pieces.
Well, dude, there's another one, and we'll jump over to Tim. I know, everyone probably doesn't want to hear us talk about our teams, but Jeff Wilson, I mean, that's a guy I thought was going to score, 4 or 5 touchdowns in the first few weeks. And surprise injury pup list. Like, what the heck? So you're already getting, eaten away by the injury bug. So I'm sorry. That stinks. But yeah.
I'll make it work.
But on to the next. So Tim was in a tough spot. I know, Tim, we did both rank you at 12 prior to the draft. I did see a couple of things I liked Tim in terms of some of the young guys that you're picking up. Nick, did you want to call out any player specifically or anything that you saw on draft day?
Yeah, sure. I liked I think the Terry buy is pretty solid. I liked a lot the Warren buy as well. I know I just said how much when we were talking about your team, I like Ramondre too. And I think Ezekiel Elliott's actually not a bad buy either. Tim went pretty running back heavy with his purchases here. But Zeke specifically, even though I don't really love the player, I do like the role. Belichick loves to mix his running backs over the majority of his career as a coach there. And I know he hasn't done it as much in the last couple of years, but if Ramondre got hurt or Belichick just gets weird, I could see Elliott being a really good buy at $21. I thought he'd go for more than that. He's probably one of the best handcuffs, and even if he's not a handcuff, he's useful. Warren at the same $21. That's Tim's thing, is 21, I guess. Good job, Tim. Pretty loaded running back stable there. So I think you're in a good spot. I like Deuce Vaughn as a handcuff. You got a lot of interesting post-hype guy, or late draft guys with some hype. Marvin Mims Jr. I think is the same deal, especially if we don't see Judy for the first couple weeks. I like him a lot. Overall, I think you said we didn't love Tim's team. We don't dislike Tim's team either. I don't think either of us said that. We just thought you weren't in the best spot as far as who you had available already and then what you sort of had to fill out. I think you did a pretty good job with what you had to filling it out. Assuming Terry's not out for an extended period either, or not banged up for an extended period, he's a very solid receiver to go with A.J. Brown. So, Tim, I would say overall I liked your draft. Didn't love it, but I do like it. And there were some drafts I didn't like as much as yours, so good job there.
I think Terry is an especially nice buy. He fits into similar categories Kamara in my eyes, but actually better, given that McLaurin is a couple years younger. If McLaurin has another career year this year with, another new quarterback, that's a good keeper, So I like that a lot. One, Nick, that you didn't highlight, I really like DeAndre Swift for 50. It's not every day that you can get a post-hype running back who's previously, top 5, top 10 in dynasty rankings. And now he goes to a Super Bowl contender and he's the forgotten guy. So that's a good buy for $50. If Swift shows some life this year, again, that's another great keeper who will help your team out in the future. But on to the next. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Even if he doesn't show a ton, 5% of your budget is nothing.
Agreed.
I agree.
So on to the next. Team Regional, Sean. Sean didn't have too many keepers, but he had, a nice budget going into the draft. Nick, what are you seeing out of Sean's team?
So we both kind of thought Sean was in the middle there. And I think I liked Sean's draft pretty well generally. Mike Evans has never been bad. So I think he's an excellent buy at 82. It's probably one of my favorite buys here. Chubb is in the same sort of category for me as Eckler, and you paid a little bit less for him. He's probably a step down, a tiebreaker down, but good buy with Chubb there. You got a stud. DJ Moore, I think, is going to be an excellent player this year. I like him a lot. Not as crazy about Javonte, the player, but in this format, I like Javonte sub 100 just because if Javonte comes back in the second half and runs well, you may have a keeper. The same way we talked about with Terry being a little bit, maybe because of right now, injury risk cheap. And other than that, you took some lottery ticket shots. So, Sean, kind of like what I just said with Tim, I think I liked your draft. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my least favorite. But I do think your process for most of these players is pretty solid. You came in with your quarterbacks already filled out, and you got a couple very solid flex plays / receiver running back plays. And I like the strategy there.
Yeah, I remember, Sean, just because we did draft together, you were kind of conservative going in and you weren't really spending money early in the draft. And so I did just want to give you some kudos of, pulling the trigger on Nick Chubb. I think Chubb will have a great year this year. So sometimes we get kind of lost in the sauce in terms of draft cost, especially like, maybe it's a player at the end of a tier. And I think Chubb may have been in this case. 272, is that a good deal? I think you better just shrug on that. I think it's great that he got Chubb. So I don't really think it's good or bad. To Nick's point, I think Sean got some really great deals across some of the receivers who I think are all kind of middling receivers. And I think at least 2 of them will break out to some extent. And to your point, Nick, it's kind of silly calling Evans a breakout when he's only had 1,000-yard seasons. So, I think Sean probably helped himself more than hurt himself. I think it was a good draft.
Evans is illustrated for the guy below him too, Deontay Johnson. So Deontay last year, very notably, no touchdowns. By far the most targets and catches of anybody without touchdowns. Evans, a handful of years ago, way back in like the mid-2010s, had a year with like, it was either 2 or 4 touchdowns. And everybody said, oh no touchdowns. And then Evans had, I think it was 12 the next year. So very, very obviously here, Deontay Johnson is not scoring 0 touchdowns. He'll probably score 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere way above 0, probably under 12. But my point just being, it's funny seeing them pair together. And it's really funny to me that Evans is the cheaper of the 2, but I like buying both.
Great point. Yeah, we always talk about Brad guys, and we'll talk about Brad guys in a bit, but maybe the Sean guys are the touchdown regression dudes. So watch out for Sean guys. Okay, up next is Mark, team 10 out of 12. And I think there's not a whole lot of introduction needed. The name goes without saying. He was ranked 10 out of 12 by Nick. So, Nick, what do you say now? Did
That's
Mark
where
help
I had
himself?
It. Remind me, where did you have Mark? Did you like it more than me?
I think I had him at 9. I think. I'll fact check myself here.
9.5 then. I love it, Mark. I love the bulletin board material. Hey, good job buying Josh Allen here. Mixon
Yeah.
is, I think, fine. And that's the majority of what you spent your money on. So Allen, I like a lot, even though you paid well over $300 for him. I think that's a good buy. Mixon, the player, I'm less sold on. But if you wanted to get a running back, and you probably did, I know where he went. There weren't a ton of great ones left. We've already covered at that point. You can see across the side there. I just noticed as we're going through this, Kyle, Chubb had gone 2 picks sooner, so that we can check the Kamara thing in a second. We want to.
Oh,
But
okay.
you just saw Chubb go. He was the 91st player, including keepers nominated. Mixon was probably the last running back, if I'm remembering correctly, you wanted, maybe, Mark. I think it's fine to pay whatever it costs to get him. Other than that, Jamal Williams is the one I want to point out. He's an amazing value, I think, at $20. I know we just talked about Kamara. And when he comes back, Kamara is probably going to dominate touches in a 2/3, 1/3 kind of way, I imagine. He's been Kamara his whole life. But Jamal Williams last year on the Lions, where he also played with Swift, and they kept giving carries to Justin Jackson too. All he does is score touchdowns. And the Saints, I think, are going to be a very serviceable, like the 14th best offense. He's going to get plenty of touchdowns. I think he takes Kamara's touchdowns. And that's a player I would have liked to have bought. When we got to that point in the draft, I already had bought Eckler. I already didn't have much money left, and I couldn't afford to take you to 21. But I remember him being nominated and kind of wanting him. So goodbye there, Mark. He's probably my favorite value you got. But I want to point at Josh Allen, kind of like you said, Kyle, about Chubb at 272 for Sean. For Mark, that may be even more than you want to pay, but good job getting him because you had some good keepers. You had some okay keepers, but some really good keepers too. And I think it's important to get a stud quarterback. That's what you did there. Way to go. Maybe now you're team 9.
Well said. Yeah. One thing I really liked about Mark's team were kind of those middling players. I'll throw Jamal Williams in the category, like you said, Nick. In our league with the $1,000 budget, there actually just aren't so many quality flex, secondary players that go for the $20 range.
God, yeah, look away right now.
It's kind of a tough spot. We assign these really heavy premiums onto the top players, as we should. 200 for Mixon, almost 300 for Chubb, and so on and so forth. But to get someone like Jamal Williams for 20, even quarterbacks, any starting quarterback in our league for under $50, I think that's a decent deal. I'm not crazy about Tannehill this year, but Mark has him on the bench. It's not like he's going to use him every week. So I do like this draft. I had Hunt in a couple leagues. Hunt hasn't signed. I like the process. I like the fact that you went for him. So yeah, nothing else to add here.
I got to add too, process thing. You're right. Jamal Williams, I love that one even more as I think about it, because from a process perspective, the weeks he is the starter without Kamara in there at all, he's going to be a top 24 running back play. He's going to be an easy play. When Kamara comes back, you can afford to not play him if you don't want to. But kind of like I said with Michael Thomas, so he breaks down. He makes it easy on me. I'll know to play him or not. I love the idea of, for 4 weeks, Kamara's not going to be there. Jamal Williams is a stud play. And if he shows out in a big way, he probably keeps more than you would keep otherwise. I love when you make it easy on yourself, is all I'm trying to say there. And he makes it really easy on you. Those weeks he has the job to himself.
It's one less decision you have to make. That's a win. Yeah. I mean, that's why sometimes I go into the draft. You should create a bye week issue, right? Oh, I don't need to make a decision. I created a bye week issue. I have all, bye week number 10. So you just have to play the other guys. But
you punt week 10.
Yeah. But the next guy is Lambeau. So that's Team Austin. Austin, I think, had a really interesting draft with a lot of young guys. I before we started this, Nick, I wrote down a lot of my favorite buys just from a cost perspective, more so dynasty than winning this year. And as I wrote all of these names down, I look up and like half of them are on Austin's team. So I just thought that was kind of a fun call out. But what do you think about Austin's team?
Very similarly, I think Austin's team, I mentioned maybe I like this team a little bit, or this draft a little bit more. Austin's team is tough for me because I don't actually think Austin's team for this year with the draft is one of the ones I'm not crazy about. Even before Jonathan Taylor, who I do like generally, and I liked a lot going into the draft, decided he's not going to play for the first 4 weeks or whatever, because of exactly what you said. I think moving forward, I love this because you're definitely going to have some great keepers between. If Taylor looks good going into next year, he'll be a reasonable cost, potential RB1. Smith and Jigba is going to be awesome, I think, especially in the second half. Anthony Richardson's my favorite quarterback, probably at cost, Superflex or not. Sky Moore is going to be the receiver 1. There's no Kelsey anymore. Judy, I think, is a little bit lower in the auction here because we know he's going to be hurt or at least banged up. Arcane, how do you pronounce his last name in Miami? Like him a lot too. I think Austin's team, you said it really well, probably has a lot of the best values moving forward in the dynasty format. I don't know if I love it as much for this year. I think he got kind of boned here a little bit with Taylor anyway, because the guy he paid up for is Taylor, and Taylor's not going to play early on. So it's easy to say it in a revisionist way. That's a bummer. But I think your future is bright, Austin, because you have some decent keepers already. And then you also did a really good job here, I think, getting guys for next year I'm going to want to keep.
I think Austin's team could be really sneaky. A lot of the top talent. I mean, even like Devonta Smith was a keeper, obviously, and he's already cemented himself as a great wide receiver. Excuse me, but cheap. Christian Kirk, cheap. I think Ridley probably will be the one in Jacksonville, but stacking Lawrence and Kirk. I know we both like Jacksonville to a certain extent this year. Looks good. So I agree, Nick. I like Austin's team more from a keeper perspective than maybe a win now, but I would put it past this team, especially with some of these guys like Sky Moore. You mentioned I'm big on Sky Moore now, and I hope Kelsey comes back. But even with Kelsey fully healthy, I was kind of excited to see what Sky Moore did this season, and I think even more now he'll kind of guarantee a certain amount of touches every game. So interesting to see. We've got a big team coming up next. This was one of the most polarizing teams, Nick, because I had Brad, I think 3 or 4 overall, and I think he was bottom of the barrel for you, close to 11.
He's bipolarizing.
So what do you think? How do you like Brad's draft?
I think Brad's draft is kind of what you just said, where I think I like a lot of it and I don't like a lot of it. And it's just, there's guys I love and guys I don't love. So I love the Kirk buy. I think Kirk's an excellent buy, Brad. Way to go at that cost. I know Kirk's not the QB1 or even a top 5 QB, but I think Kirk is probably going to finish QB 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that. You're going to be happy to have him. No one ever thinks he's sexy because he's not, but he's a good, solid quarterback in Superflex. I love that.
You like that?
And Brad came into this with good keepers generally, but no quarterbacks. So you want to make sure you get a good one. And Brad prioritized that. The first guy I bought. Way to go, Brad. Bryce Young's excellent. I think even if Bryce Young is just middling, you might want to keep him next year, which is exciting. Sam Howell as your third quarterback's great too. Samaje Perine I love a lot. I think Samaje Perine is going to be really useful early while Javonte's getting eased back in. Hopefully he then makes it easy on you the way we've talked about to play him or not moving forward. And then after that, there's a lot of post-up guys. So I don't know. I don't go crazy for Antonio Gibson, but I see the value there as far as somebody you can use sometimes. I think Quentin Johnson is somebody who's the opposite of my archetype, where he's a rookie this year. He'll probably be a really good keeper at some point in his career, but he's going to be a tough guy to justify in an offense until Keenan or Williams get hurt and he plays a lot. It's going to be tough to justify, I think, probably the $49. I hope you can prove me wrong, and he's great this year. I like him a lot in like a exciting long-term way. But I worry he'll be the third option or even fourth behind Eckler maybe this year in the passing game and be a tough decision point for you next year, Brad. Aaron Jones is probably at cost, roughly. I don't know. What do you think, Kyle? Am I wrong anywhere in there? Oh, last guy, too. I know I danced past him. I think Fryman's a good buy, Brad. Sorry. I want to give you credit there, too. He's probably like the 6th or 7th tight end, I think, this year. You got him for $30. Way to go.
I agree. I won't harp on Brad's team too much. I think this is completely subjective, but maybe a fun game for us to play when we have some guests on the pod in future weeks would be Brad guy or not a Brad guy. And we could just list off some of the, it doesn't even have to be guys who are in the NFL now, but is this a Brad guy?
He kind of is, yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious. Like Aaron Jones is like OG Brad guy for sure.
And guy or not?
Who?
McConaughey, the actor.
I'd say that's a Brad guy.
Guy.
Yeah.
Right? It's obvious. Like, there's no real debate. He's a Brad guy.
Well, also, if you spent a little bit of time in Washington, like Samaje Perine, that's a good Brad guy right there. So, like Kirk Cousins, obviously. So, yeah.
And he used to play for Washington. He thought it was Jordan Reed, I think. He just fucked up, I think.
Jaden Reed?
And he thinks that's Jordan Reed, I think.
Yeah. He lost a few LBs. He's just changing position. He got a little faster. Trying to make it work in Green Bay. We'll see what happens.
Belligerently drunk and thought, Jay Reed? Oh.
Jay Reed, good.
Yeah.
So we have a couple minutes before we hit the break and hit an ad. Do you want to try to get through Pete's team here, Nick?
On through Pete.
Meaty Pete.
Pete, Speedy Pete, way to go. McCaffrey, Diggs, and Keenan. Love those first 3 buys. I told you buy some studs. You listened. Way to go. Mitchell's a great handcuff. I think Musgrave is an interesting post-hype guy. Roshan Johnson I really like as the last guy you bought. Nico Collins, an interesting post-hype guy. I think he's going to be a solid potential flex play for your bye weeks for sure. I think he'll be useful. Even if Stroud's not great, I think just Stroud being serviceable will be good for him. Pete Stroud is one of the ones I like the best. Evan Ingram, too. Deep lead. You're going to play tight end. Evan Ingram was really good down the stretch last year. I think the second half he was like tight end 3, something like that. So I feel great playing a lot of these guys you got. You got your boy Romeo Dubs, too. Know you're a big Packers guy. What do you know we don't know? Because I don't know much about Dubs. But either way, I like this team. Alan Lazard's kind of we have Brad guys, Pete guy. Alan Lazard used to be on the Packers.
Yep. Yeah, I'm starting to see the Pete guys also. I like Roshan Johnson too for $1, right? Just keep him on. What's that?
He is kind of bradish, honestly.
That's why I have them next to each other here. They can keep each other company. But yeah, I think Pete, we'll just leave you with this. Great job on CMC and Diggs. I agree. Way to go out and spend your money. All right. I think we'll flip over to a break and we'll be right back.
Perfect.
In this line of work, you need strength as well as instincts. Put it right here. Gotcha. Check this out. Ready? Go! That's why you picked me. Your move.
Cool. Well, we're back. So we just finished talking about Meaty Pete. On to Griffin. Griffin was a tough one because, we had him in very different spots. I think, Nick, you had Griffin top 3. I had Griffin bottom 3. So yeah. What did you think about Griff?
Griff probably is the one who changed the least because he has the least to do in the draft. He had more than half his guys already rostered. That said, I liked Griffin's draft fine. I think it's slightly below some other ones we've looked at. I feel like I don't want to say I'm dinging him because he didn't have money and he couldn't buy a stud or not. It's just more, I don't know. I mean, any quarterback in a super flex like this for 11 is fine, but Mac Jones isn't exciting. He's your backup quarterback, though. Who cares? Dalton Schultz. What do rookie QBs love? Usually tight end. I think he's fine. Algier. I don't know. I don't really think anything of Paris Campbell or Greg Dulcich. So I don't know. I think it was a right around expectations, maybe slightly below it for where I thought you'd do, Griff. I like your team a lot going into it. I like your team a lot now still. Most of your guys are already accounted for.
Agreed. I think the one exception, I'll throw Traylon Burks in there as someone I really like at $15. I'm not really sure what to make of Tennessee this year. I think there are a lot of questions. I'm not really that high on Hopkins. I think Burks will be someone who will play more on the outside. I think he probably has more burst at this point than Hopkins. So I think despite Burks being, I think he's a little banged up right now, actually. So despite any slow start for Burks, to have him at $15 and a potential keeper, I think I'll throw some credit your way, Griff, on that one. And I know Griffin did also call out that he's projected to score the most points in week 1 and win the league. So we'll see, Griffin.
We said that, but then we looked, and before Kelsey died, I was projected more points. He was wrong about that.
Really?
Yes. And I think someone else was too. He was like 3rd or 4th.
3rd or 4th. Okay.
Right in, Griff. Tell us why you were wrong. I don't remember what the exact scenario was. I remember looking at me like I have more points than you. It looks like.
Yeah, Griff. Where are the voicemails? That's one thing, guys. Feel free to send in a mailbag. We'll answer your questions.
Call me or Kyle and leave us a voicemail, and we will play it. That's a good point. Please, we want them. Give us the mailbag.
Or call Dom French.
Call Dom French and let him know he's our producer. He's not featured on this one, but he's our producer.
So Kevin is the next one. I think Kevin, it's funny, but he had, I think, one of the strongest teams, in my opinion, going into the draft. He's now assembled the same team. So yeah. I think he wanted to keep the Derrick Henry train going. So, Nick, what do you think?
I think there's not much to say here other than that I mostly agree with you. I think we both had you as a playoff team coming in. I think your draft was about what I would have kind of par for the course, Kev. I think Henry is not my favorite player, my least favorite player, but I think you got an RB1 at cost, which is fine based on the keepers you have. You're kind of trying to add someone who's going to be a borderline star, and you got that. I think after that though, I do find Jacoby Myers as far as somebody played during bye weeks. Montgomery is fine. I think he's the hype on Gibbs is so much that I think Gibbs will be awesome, but I do think Montgomery's kind of falling by the wayside as far as he'll play the Jamal Williams role most likely. And that is a really good offense, I think. So he's fine too. Tyler Boyd's probably my favorite pick you made as far as from a value standpoint, because Boyd is somebody I think if and when, God forbid, Chase or Higgins get hurt, you're going to know immediately. Again, he'll make it easy for you. You'll know to play Boyd. And you can probably play him during bye weeks anyway. So for $3, I like that a lot. I would have bid on Boyd personally as a Chase center if I wasn't out of money by that point. I remember being pissed you got him. Goodbye, Kev.
Well said. We'll hop over to the next team, which is Big Meat Pete. That's actually Colt's team. So Team Colt, interesting one because he had 4 keepers, Derek Carr, Debo, Pittman, and CeeDee Lamb. So he had a decent amount of money to play around with. Nick, what did you think about Colt's team?
So I like Colt's team a lot coming in. I think Colt did a really good job of something that I would have wanted to do basically no matter what, but really like doing as far as giving Colts keepers. And we talked about a little bit with some of these other teams, but Breece Hall is the perfect archetype here because he was probably trending towards being the RB1 in a dynasty standpoint before he got hurt last year. I know Dalvin Cook's there, oh no, for 1 year. Breece Hall's coming off an ACL, oh no. I think a little bit under $100 is a fine value anyway. And then when you factor in, he's probably going to be an amazing keeper next year when I doubt we see Cook come back. That's going to be great. So I think you got a very serviceable value there anyway. And I think you also have a really solid candidate for a keeper. Gibbs, I think you kind of like I gave some grief about Quentin Johnson in a little bit of a different way. I think Gibbs you probably paid what I would have paid plus a little bit, which doesn't make him a great keeper. But he's probably going to be good anyway, so who really cares too much? I'm not trying to really ding you for that either. Waller is a great candidate, I think, because of the injuries. When he plays, you'll want to play him. He'll probably smash that Giants offense. I think Pickett's a solid quarterback in this format. Stroud you got too. I don't know if I want to pay as much money for both of them. I would have probably preferred to pay the cost you paid for both of them for one of them. But now you have a bunch of quarterbacks. That's not bad either in this format. Godwin, I think, is a decent value. Godwin's never been bad. And I don't know why he'd be bad this year. He'll be useful. I feel like it's pretty trendy. We talked about with Evans to not like one or both of them. I think both do fine. Sutton, especially if Judy misses time, is fine. Colts draft, I think, was a little bit on the above average side. I like this keeps coming in too. So Colt's going to be a good team this year, Colt. I like your team as much or more now. I also love that you're going with the Big Meat Pete moniker. Colt also, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just dumb, Kyle. Help me out here with the bits. Colt, like multiple times in the draft was like, get him, Nick. You are the smartest. Is he trying to like build a rivalry? Is he mad at me? Did I upset him in some way?
So the talk of the draft was that we were all over each other, Nick, in the last draft or the last pod, just complimenting each other. And I think it got old pretty quick. Where the conversation went next is anytime we were all in the room and you started bidding on someone, everyone said, oh, Nick likes him. Nick likes him. So then Colt said, oh, if Nick likes him, we've got to start bidding. And it just became a bid. So
which makes me really happy.
That's where it came from. But it's also funny because we play in a lot of leagues with the same guys, Nick. And I feel like there are times where certain people will bid and you will see people come just out of the rafters. It's like, you have not been drafting at all. And now you're interested. So I think that strategy does actually happen sometimes. But back to Colt really quick. I agree with you. I think Colt has a lot of depth, which I really like. And you already highlighted Breece Hall, but I'd maybe call Breece Hall out as my favorite buy in the whole draft at $96.
Yeah.
Just because I really think you're right. I think he was the number one dynasty player, at least in standard leagues before he got hurt. And I'm not sure if he'll necessarily return on this year fully. I think later in the season, perhaps. But as a keeper, I think that's really going to make Colts team in the future. If I could trade in my $76 Kamara to get a $96 or okay, 73, but nevertheless, if I could swap that in and something to get
wouldn't do it.
A $96 Breece Hall, that would be nice. So good job, Colt. On to Team Zinc. So what do you think about Ray's team, Nick?
So Raymond's team was tough. I think Raymond was kind of like Colt for me in the middle of the pack, a little bit above average, or maybe right around average for me coming in. Tyler is tough. Kyle, let's start with just Tyler here. Do you think Tyler is going to be a good long-term value at the price you paid? We specifically called Kyler out as somebody, definitely buy him for next year and for down the stretch run. And I've got Kyler in different leagues, so I'm not saying I don't like Kyler. I'm just curious. I feel like he walks the line for me personally as somebody who it's going to be tough decision-making on next year.
Yeah, I loved Kyler, and he was a target of mine for around $25, not for 79. So to answer your question, I actually don't think he's a keeper value. Um, I am very torn. I'm not sure what the real answer is here. I don't really think he's going to play this year. That's my hunch, but we'll see. I mean, I think Kyler was just named the captain of the team, so maybe there's something out there that we don't know about. But that's my thought. I'm actually not crazy about the value. I am crazy about a couple of the buys. I like Ayuk for 74. I think he's underrated frequently just because Debo is such a talented wideout. And then the whole San Francisco team is just stacked. Kittle, CMC. So I think Ayuk gets forgotten, but it wouldn't be surprising to see him as, a standout this year. I love Russell Wilson still. I like to bet on him turning it around. I don't know. I actually don't have him anywhere this year. So clearly I didn't put my money where my mouth was, but $63, I think, is a really good buy for us, particularly comparing him to other quarterbacks. Like, I think Stroud is fine for 32, but $32 Stroud.
No, I agree. Compared to Pickett 2 at 53, just because they're next to each other, I agree. I think Russ is the best buy of those.
Yeah.
I liked Raymond's draft. He was one of my top, 4 or 5, probably, if I were to guess. I like his draft a lot.
Nice. Okay. Well, that does it for draft recap. Any other thoughts about draft day, Nick? Anything that stood out to you? Surprises? I know I mentioned this is a little less fun, guys, but feel free to give us some feedback. Took a little bit longer than I expected. So, do you have any thoughts about the salary cap or, anything on that?
Yeah, the cost number is one where, because we have the higher budget, it may make sense to do it in a way where the clock ticking down each time is shorter, just so you have less time in between $1 bids. I still probably lean in the direction of preferring the longer clock, even though it makes it take a little bit longer. I think it's fun to have the higher budget number because it makes you sort of be forced to think about every player a little bit longer. But I understand how it could take a little bit longer too. I feel like it's almost like when people talk about shortening baseball games. If you like it, you don't really mind as much. But if you don't, you do. So I would be in favor if you wanted to make it a little bit less money, or if you want to change the clock. I think one of those is a good addition. I wouldn't do both, but I would do one of them personally.
Yeah. Well, let us know, guys, what you think about it. I think we can move along, Nick, to, some things coming up because we do have football this week. So we can start to talk a little bit about matchups. And just so you guys know, each week, Nick and I will be going head to head and calling out which team we like. We'll be doing our own pick 'em, and we'll be recording, and we'll tally up our wins at the end of the season to see who is better at predicting our league's performance. So I'll pull that up in just a second, but
I'm going to make an Excel sheet right now and keep track of it for us. And then eventually we'll send this out so you guys can let us know each week who you think. I'll make it editable so you guys can edit your own fields too. And if you want, you can play along at home. I don't know about this week. Oh, I can't do it actually. Never mind, Kyle. Never mind. Fuck all of that. With Kyle sharing a screen, I can't do it in real time. So never mind, you guys.
I'm sorry. We'll follow up.
We'll figure out a way to do it, though. We'll figure out a way you guys can tell us each week, too. Don't know about week 1, because it starts in 2 days. But starting in week 2, probably we'll have a way to do that.
Yeah. And I just wanted you guys to be able to see the teams.
No, what you're doing makes complete sense. I'm glad you're doing it this way. I need to see it, too.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll go through step by step, and we'll write down kind of the teams that we're picking here. But and Nick, I'll let you take a look. But before we get into it, I did have one draft recap story to tell. And it's just because all of my drafts happened basically the same weekend, all 3 in a row. And so it was a lot of fun. I was looking forward to it. And and Bridget could tell how excited I was. So she would ask about it, but really more so to be polite, right? This is not the most exhilarating thing for her, football stuff. So I tried to go pretty QB heavy in all of these super flex leagues. So in this league, I did get Lamar Jackson, which I was pretty happy about. In another league, I got Josh Allen. And in the third league, I got Patrick Mahomes. So I just wanted to ask Bridget, this year, who do you like the most out of Lamar, Mahomes, and Allen? And she was very surefire in her answer. And she said Patrick Mahomes. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting. That's a consensus pick. Like, what makes you believe in Mahomes this year, Bridget? And we just started watching The Quarterback together on Netflix. So she's gotten to know the players a little bit. I think she likes Mahomes. She likes Cousins. And she's like, well, Mahomes, his wife is so annoying. All he'll want to do is practice. So he's going to practice more than anyone. He doesn't want to be at home. The wife is just too annoying. So that's her answer. And I just thought it was funny. So keep that in mind, guys. If you're still doing any late drafts, make sure to get Mahomes because he does not want to go home. He just wants to stay at the facility and practice.
It's kind of a galaxy brain brilliant take too. And honestly, I know a couple of the guys in this league are married or have long-term girlfriends. Like you and Austin are married, right? We have a lot of long relationships. Raymond's been dating us for a long time. A bunch of those are going on. I think it's a competitive advantage hearing that to date a really annoying girl or marry a really annoying girl. Because Kyle, if Bridget annoys him, can spend way more time in the lab being better at this than the rest of you. Or if Vanessa's really pissing off Raymond, he can spend way more time in the lab.
Yep.
That's a pretty good thought process. I like that. That's why I'm going to find someone really annoying and like lock on into life, I think, personally. Because I'll be better at fantasy sports.
You'll lock down the championship every year if you do
dude,
that.
I'm gonna find the most annoying woman in the world, and then lock her.
Yeah. So if anyone has information about Lamar Jackson's dating life, I'd love to know if she's annoying. Because if so, buy all of your Ravens shares right now. But
Josh Allen's girlfriend's nice, dude. He's fucked this year.
Yeah, he sucks. Also,
he's gonna spend all his time with her. He's gonna suck at football.
Yeah, a nice girlfriend. He was on the cover of Madden. I don't know. Sounds like a cursed season to me. But okay, let's dig into the matchups here. So we've got Team Regional, Sean versus myself. Yeah, I humble brag. I'm gonna pick myself here. What about you, Nick?
I think I give you a slight edge too. It's not fun to go with ESPN, especially, but when I look at it for the matchup specifically, I said I like Javonte potentially down the stretch. I don't love Javonte week 1. Pacheco against the Lions and what should be a shootout. Amon-Ra against the Chiefs and what should be a shootout. I like them both a lot. I think Calvin Ridley's going to be awesome this year. I think he's not getting enough credit yet because we haven't seen it yet in the projection, so I project him higher too. And basically that's what it comes down to. Those are the guys when I look at this, I see the biggest difference from where I would project versus what I think ESPN's giving you in projections. And I would lean probably 60-40 you, Kyle. So not really fun. We're not going head-to-head here. We both think you. Sorry, Sean, I like your team, but not necessarily this week.
Yeah, and some of the guys like Mike Evans, Andrews, Olave, like this could obviously go either way.
I'm less worried about Andrews' injury, more worried about the fact the Ravens might go up by 2 scores at halftime, and Andrews, if he's a little bit banged up, doesn't play second half.
That's a good point. This might just be a total bloodbath against Houston.
It's a real concern to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, next up is your team, Nick. So Team Bucher against Team Zink. Let's scroll down so you can kind of get a little bit more detail here. Everyone,
man, that Kelsey would be nice to have in there. It was a much different looking matchup when Kelsey was going to play.
Yeah, despite the Juju knee fears, I will take you here, Nick. In week 1. How about yourself?
I think similarly to what we were just talking about. Now, I'm scared because I think Fields is going to have a lot of very solid plays. I think Kenneth Walker, even if he does do some carries to Charbonnet and stuff, is going to be good overall. Just not necessarily in his first game against the Rams. I think he's going to be great just because he's going to probably be up. Bijan, though, the other way, I feel like this might be the worst game of Bijan's whole season because even though he's either RB1 or RB1A with a Patterson/Algier name, he probably won't get a million touches right out of the gate. Probably the best thing to play Bijan is week 1.
Well, it's also
I also know Kittle's kind of banged up, which isn't great.
Yeah.
So, I like Ravens' team. I slightly lean myself too, even without Kelsey, which I know just feels kind of shitty to say out loud because I'm like really sucking myself off. But I would give me this slight edge here too. I'm going to take myself.
I mean, Nick, if you wanted, you could always pick Ray, and you could also just, throw Kenny Gainwell, Evan Hull in the mix and guarantee that you get it right. I mean, that's always an option. So
there's decent game theory in that, but I also hate Raymond, so I'm picking me. Raymond, you suck.
Also, you mentioned Bijan. I think we may have talked about this before, but I think it's the Arthur Smith show still, and he was kind of involved in the early Derrick Henry just like underutilization. So I don't know. I think that's kind of a concern that I have, even with the draft capital on Bijan. He wasn't really a target for me in a lot of leagues, not from a talent or fit perspective, but just a usage kind of fear. And who knows? We'll find out quick. Week 1's coming up, so could be wrong. So Buttered Bread, so Team Brad versus Meaty Pete. This is an interesting one. Do you have any thoughts? I do have a pick. Yeah.
Did I just go first or you go first? We can alternate who goes first.
I don't remember, truthfully, but I do have a take. I'm happy to share.
Go ahead and give your take then. I don't have a strong take, but I have a take.
Yeah, so I'll go Brad on this one. It's definitely close. I really like both teams a lot. This is more so from just the wide receiver perspective. I think that there's some really good matchups. I think that as much as I have a love-hate with the Commanders, with Washington, I do think that they're just going to open up a can against the Cardinals. Yep. And I think that Terry, even if he does play, he's not really going to be himself. So I expect Dotson to have a really big game. He's one of my favorite guys. Just I haven't really done any touchdown props yet, but might throw down a touchdown prop on Dotson. I like him this week 1. So Brad has a funny stack here with Howell, Dotson, Cousins, and Jefferson. And to be honest, for that reason, I like both matchups. That's really why I'm giving it to Brad here. I do like Pete's team. He's got some really top-heavy talent with Pollard, McCaffrey, Keenan Allen, and Diggs. So that's great. But I think just the quarterbacks, I like Brad slightly better for this week. And then I think I also like the stacks.
Yeah, it's tough. I think I have a lot of what you said as the way I started thinking about it too. The one other thing I want to note is I worry slightly about Diggs on that side too, just because of the fact this is one of the toughest matches you can possibly have. Not that he's not going to get his still anyway, but playing against Sauce is a tough for your best player. I worry Diggs might not have 100 plus. He might just be, maybe he gets a touchdown, but he has only a handful of catches. For that reason, I also lean Brad. I wish we had some more disagreements here just because this isn't necessarily fun to be going head to head and then also agree. But I also did write down Brad, so I don't know.
Well, I think we also need to nominate this game as a potential primetime game. I like the fact that we have several key players in the Monday slot. So, I mean, look at that. So the matchup of Jefferson.
Yeah, Tony, Daniel Jones, all of them.
I misspoke. Yeah. Wilson and Diggs. And then Cousins also, obviously. So,
yeah.
Or why am I bringing up the Vikings? The Vikings play on Sunday. I'm an idiot. But still, Wilson against Diggs. That could be fun.
Yeah. Either way, no one's going to know until Monday night, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Monday night, we'll decide this. But we both lean Brad, which is also interesting. We both go against ESPN here, too.
Yeah, no, agreed. Okay. Next up is Team Mark against Team Griffin. And
you just won. I can go first for this one. I say we alternate. It's not really fair if I copy yours or you copy mine. Kind of with ESPN here. I like Griffin's team a lot coming in. I think Griffin's team did a good job. Not, falling apart before the draft, or before the season somehow. Mark had a good draft. Mark's team is good. I like Mark's team. Again, Jamal Williams is going to probably go off. I think he beats his projection here. But at the same time, it's hard to top. I think Watson and Burrow becomes a shootout. I know Burrow's been banged up this offseason, but I think that's going to be an absolute shootout. Tyreek Hill, I think, is going to go off against the Chargers. Maybe Waddle catches the touchdowns. That's the difference here. That's why Mark ends up winning. I think it's definitely a chance of Mark winning here. I don't think it's like a foregone conclusion or anything. But I definitely lean Griffin here.
Yeah. I'm so excited for Thursday. I don't really know what to make out of the Lions, particularly with the Kelsey injury. I think that game might be a little bit closer than people originally thought. This is another close one for me. I did write down Griffin as well, but
we're gonna agree on all of them. Damn it!
This could go either way. I don't know what you think about Beckham, Nick, and maybe I'm kind of the idiot. I'm not super high on Beckham this year. Like, I would almost consider, especially with the Kelsey injury, throwing Tony in there if he's healthy. I don't know. I
agree in the sense that I want to see it first, but yeah. I don't think Tony's a safer play. I think Mark's making a fine choice.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I want to see it.
And obviously, he has time to change his mind. But
yeah.
Okay. On to the next. So I think I go first on this one. This is Timmy Bananas, Team Tim versus Kevin. I am going to lean with ESPN's on projections on this one. I think Kevin really has a stacked team. I also rely pretty heavily on quarterbacks. Tim does not have slouches with Tua and Herbert. I really do like Herbert a lot this year. But especially with, Mike Williams on the opposing team, I think that kind of offsets some of Herbert's upside from a matchup perspective. Also, just I love Hurts against New England, Henry early in the season. I think it's a good matchup, but I definitely lean Kevin.
Yeah, I also have Kevin written down. I'm curious, if you're Kevin, would you play McKinnon over? I think Kupp's not playing, and I think that makes it close. I think Tim could win. Tim, I almost picked you when I saw Kupp was not going to play this week, most likely. I know right now he hasn't been there. Is that who you'd play, Kyle? Would you go McKinnon? Because I think it is for me. But he has to make that choice in the next 24 hours, 48 hours here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not. I think Boyd is a great player in terms of kind of handcuffing, but I don't think I'd play Boyd. I'm not crazy about McKinnon just because I really do believe Pacheco is going to step up this year. I guess I'd play McKinnon. I would also consider Rondale Moore against Washington. I don't think that they're going to have a good game. But I mean, who are they going to throw to? I think Moore might be.
Who's going to throw the ball though? I think Rondale Moore might be an okay idea, but is it Clayton Tune or is it Dobbs or who? I don't even know who the quarterback is. They don't want us to know it's competitive advantage apparently. Maybe Rondale Moore plays some Wildcat quarterback.
Maybe it will be Rondale Moore as quarterback. Yeah, I don't know, man. But I am going to, even with Kupp not playing, yeah, it does become a lot closer, but I'll lean Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, I have Kevin written down too, but I don't think it's anywhere near as close. I want to make sure I do. I feel like it's not a 65-35 or whatever that's just said on ESPN. I think without Kupp playing, I think Kupp probably won't play. This feels like a true coin flip miss for me in the sense that I just take Kevin by 52-48 or so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully we have a different one here, Nick, because so far we've picked all the same teams. But this one is Austin against Colt. I think this is another good one. I do have a quick tip for Austin. Obviously you have plenty of time to move Taylor out of your lineup, but I would just suggest that you throw him in your IL because you can just pick up another
free ad.
Yeah, you can pick up just a speculative ad, anyone you believe in, maybe even a handcuff to another player who you think is really good. So just a suggestion. But even with replacing Taylor with someone like Sky Moore, I think that's a really good play, particularly with Kelsey likely missing week 1. I really do like it. Obviously, some of these guys, Anthony Richardson is a big question mark. I really like him this year, to be honest. So I think he'll be all right. Charbonnet, I'm not so sure. I think I would need to look a little bit more into the Judy injury. I'm not sure if he's really going to be set to go week 1, but I'm not super keen on starting Charbonnet. But aside from that, I really like the matchups a lot for Austin's side.
Oh, okay, good then. Maybe we do. I like Colt here pretty significantly, and I feel bad for Austin because he's had a rough deal here with the Taylor situation. Charbonnet, I think I like a lot, just not necessarily to start out. I think it's tough early on to be a rookie running back and potentially not the number 1. And the first couple weeks aren't when I want to play you. Kincaid also, I think he's going to have a decent second half, maybe, but not early on. Meanwhile, for Colt, I think Sutton benefiting from directly on the other side. You don't have probably Judy. I think Dalvin Cook, while Breece Hall is recovering, this might be one of his best games all year. First couple weeks here, pardon me. I like Colt here pretty comfortably. I think Austin's team is good. It's in a rough spot for the first week.
Cool. Okay. So I'll go Austin, you go Colt. So we are different, at least for once. That's nice.
Oh, good. We didn't agree on every single matchup. That's great.
Perfect. Okay. So that's all we have for pick'ems. So we will share that out with you guys. So hopefully in the future, if you'd like to, you can participate. We'll tally everything up and see who the ultimate YAC boy is. What else do we have for this week? We already talked news, really. JT on the pup, Kelsey injured, Juju, his knee could explode. Cooper
not
Kupp,
for sure. It might not explode week 1, hopefully.
So Cooper Kupp, what do you think is going on with him? Do you think he'll be Cooper Kupp this year?
It's tough, man. I don't know. I really like Cooper Kupp coming into the year. I thought he was like receiver 3 probably, which I don't think is where he just like was going. But he's almost like a running back more than a receiver in the injury history thing. So I worry a lot seeing that. The Rams are kind of a house of cards, man. Like if their stars and scrubs play, they could be very competitive. But I fear without Cooper Kupp, they might not be very good. Stafford could, since he can't bond with his 22-year-old teammates, he might just decide to retire randomly. It's very possible. I don't know. Cup is somebody I would have loved a couple weeks ago. Now, it's not that I care. I actually care less than I think about injury risk than the average person. I'm not as too concerned. Like McCaffrey, for example, I took him every year. He kept getting hurt, and he was amazing last year, even with a trade midseason. Most guys can't do that. And it's not that I'm worried about Cup because he's an injury risk guy. It's that I'm worried about Cup now because he's injured. Yeah, I hope that's a little bit of a differentiation that makes sense, because I was not worried about Cup at all before I found he was hurt, because he'd been hurt before. I think it's a little bit overblown to worry about injury risk in football, especially because everybody gets hurt generally before they're already hurt. But once they're hurt, then I do ease the brakes a lot, or pump the brakes a lot on them, excuse me. And it's not because he's been hurt before, it's because he's hurt right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's also not like a contusion of like the quadricep or like something a little bit easier to get over. The hamstring just tends to be something that nags and nags and nags. So I think it's a tough one. And I'd love to see Stafford sling it this year and have the Rams, produce another good year, but I don't really think it's in the cards. Their defense is looking rough. So yeah, I don't really know much about their defense. But we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, it's basically Aaron Donald and not much else.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw this clip somewhere. It might have been part of my take, but we've had this conversation many times, Nick, and I feel like Aaron Donald is probably up there, but just top of mind, what player do you think is the best player if you only had that one player as clones? So you have Aaron Donald as every single position: quarterback, running back, offensive line, wide receivers, tight end. Who's the best football player to take in every position?
So he's not officially retired, but he is unsigned, and I think the answer might be Cam Newton.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He might be who I'd pick. Since I can't pick Cam, probably though, since he's on a team right now, Aaron Donald's up there. It's probably going to be either a really freaky athlete on the defensive or offensive line, or a quarterback who's so good in some other way. Like Fields probably has a case. I think it needs to be either a very athletic quarterback or one of the best offensive defensive linemen. I don't think you can really get very far making a case for anybody else, in my opinion.
Yeah. So speaking of kind of players who, play on both sides, I was doing a little bit of, research, trying to throw in some fun clips for the episode today. And I came across a player. I did know about this guy. Do you know of a guy within the past few years who's in a single season, he's scored a touchdown on offense, on defense, and on special teams? Does that ring any bells? It's not a trick question. It did actually happen.
No, I believe you. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think about who it would be. It's probably a defensive player who played some fullback or tight end, right? Is it J.J. Watt or someone like that?
No, surprisingly. Like, I was thinking something like Vrabel. Like, I remember Vrabel when we were kids.
Vrabel has like 12 touchdowns in his career, I think.
Yeah. But I'm actually speaking about, you're right. He's a cornerback, actually. So he's smaller, faster. But also on the Patriots, Marcus Jones. I think he was a rookie last year. And he had all of those amazing returns, punt returns, kick returns. But he also had a touchdown that didn't really look too gimmicky. It was a rushing play to the left.
I remember
touchdown.
that now.
And then he also had a pick six. So, I mean, really crazy. And
it was 2 years ago, right?
I thought it was last year, but I could be wrong.
Maybe I'm wrong then. I thought it was the other defense special teams was like the best one.
I think that was last year.
Oh, then I'm mixing my ears. Yeah, okay. Then we're agreeing on that. Just the wrong year. Wait, yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah. So, and I think they, from a fantasy perspective, were ranked so highly because of this guy. This guy just had a bunch of touchdowns. So pretty crazy. But I was reading that it was the first time that any player had done that in 75 years. So of course it's the Patriots, right?
Well, is by the way too. So is Donald who you would pick for the clone him?
I think so. I would also throw Josh Allen into the mix. I feel like Josh Allen is like
the Jags. Josh Allen, you mean?
No,
I know.
I mean, to be honest, yeah, like any fast defensive end would probably be really good, right?
Gotta be somebody big enough, I think, is the issue. Like, I want to pick someone like Edelman or Odell who can throw some too. You want someone who can throw some, I think, too. But I also want someone who's big enough to block.
Or what if you have an entire offense of Deuce Vaughns or like Darren Sproles, and they're just
you just like get trampled.
Yeah, probably would not go so well. but just run the weave like whenever you're like practicing as like a little kid. Soccer,
It would look like a
football.
colony of ants, probably. Deuce
All right.
Vaughn in the clip on training camp where they're all wearing pads, but not for some reason he's not wearing pads. He looks like someone's like kid is playing Make a Wish with the team. He's like running. They're not tagging his 2-inch touches like a July or early August clip, and he's like running through the practice team defense, and he's so much smaller than everybody else. He looks like a child.
Dude, it's so funny. I could be mixing this up. I'm pretty sure I got this right, but Deuce Vaughn, I didn't really know anything about him, but just during the preseason and watching clips during training camp, I thought he looked great, just purely eye test.
Oh, I like him a lot this year. I think he's going to Tony Pollard maybe.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that the big draft story with the Cowboys where one of the GMs or one of the front office guys drafted his son. That's Deuce Vaughn.
Oh, I didn't know they were related. That's an awesome story.
I'm almost sure, yeah. If you just like YouTube Deuce Vaughn.
If that's true,
draft,
that's awesome. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, like his dad like calls him. And guys, you're probably listening to this and you're like, no, Kyle's just wrong. But I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. So just pull it up on YouTube. Maybe I'll throw it in a clip here. But I'm pretty sure Deuce Vaughn's dad like calls him up. He's like, yeah, like we're finally doing it, buddy. And I'm almost positive I saw this clip before the season started, before anything. And I was like, oh, like, that's kind of cool. But, late round pick, who cares? But yeah, Deuce Vaughn, I think he's kind of a legit guy. So could be fun.
I love that. I also think, because we only have a few minutes left before we go to ad here, or we finish up whatever we're going to do.
Yeah.
I think because I'm thinking about the Excel sheet, let's do for week 1, because it probably made up before this gets published. Guys, email me or text me your picks for the week of our league, for at least for the first week. And then moving forward, I'll make a sheet I'll share with everybody. I'll take care of that, Kyle. I'll be in charge of the sheet. And I'll give them edit access. But because it's going to probably come out with like less than 24 hours notice, if you want to get in this, guys, you can skip. We'll give you a buy or a free. Let's give them all a free win for Thursday if it's not out by then. I think it's pretty free. Yeah, it doesn't matter really anyway. They can't get in by Thursday. Let them get in by Sunday.
Okay.
Because they'll get the advantage of, like, if let's say Mahomes on my team ends up not doing, he tears his ACL, God forbid, on week 1 in the first minute. It's very easy to then pick my matchup, right? If I don't get Mahomes, I get a 0 from Mahomes and I don't have Kelsey anymore.
Yeah.
Let's give them a slight edge against us. By Sunday, text or email me your picks.
I like it. And
if you do it by Sunday at 1:00 Eastern, I'll include you this week.
Okay. I like it. Thank you.
That sound fair?
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. One other call out, again, just send us your voicemail, send us your messages, questions, whatever. We'll have someone on hopefully for the next pod. Griffin, if you're listening, I do have something for you. So hopefully when you're on the pod, you can show the world. Nick, less than a minute here. Anything else before we call it?
Nah, I'm looking forward to getting the season started. I can't wait to hopefully finish better than third place every year you've had this league. So that'll be fun to either finish third or somewhere else for the first time.
What is it? Second is a coincidence. Third is 3 times is a...
Once is random. Twice is coincidence. Thrice is tradition.
There you go. Well, we're making traditions happen.
They call me third place for a reason, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you,
Have a good one, Nick. Love you, buddy.
Love you, buddy.